Good afternoon. Our presentation today is about clinical decision making and the components that follow to help make a great clinical decision. During this scenario, please listen and find the examples that are given to represent safety, professionalism, teamwork and collaboration, and patient-centered care.
Okay, that morning I was assigned for my patient for the day, and I'd had her before, so I already knew what her demeanor would be. Upon entering the room, her head was lowered and her legs were higher. The patient was resting with eyes closed, and one leg was slightly hanging off the side of the bed. Upon calling her name, the patient was not alert or oriented, and I had called her name multiple times. I began to do a quick assessment and do her vitals. Her respirations were 11. Normal respirations are 12 to 20, so I knew something was wrong. I went ahead to get my instructor, Miss Reese, and filled her in on what was going on. Once we headed back to the room, Miss Reese had started to delegate things. Carrie was on the O2 sat. I was telling everyone what had happened. Miss Reese was getting orders on her O2 liters, on the patient's O2 liters, and Shatavia was counting respirations. The nurse informed us on the meds that were given that day and how the patient has been acting prior to that day. Since Friday, she had been barely eating and was also declining.
So at that point in our situation, we were like, okay, let's do mechanical means that can help this patient get her O2 sats up. So we repositioned the patient in bed. We lifted the head of the bed to about 30 degrees or higher. And at that point, we also checked that her order for her O2 was 6 liters and it was on 6 liters. So we knew that she was getting the correct amount of oxygen per nasal cannula. So we rechecked the O2 sat and it was 98%, which is great. Her respirations had went back to normal. We listened to her lung sounds and her upper lungs were clear. The lower lungs were diminished. So once we knew that our patient was safe, we left the patient in the lowest position, guardrails up, call bell was in reach. Also, we informed maintenance that her bed was sinking to one side, so she needed a new bed so she wouldn't fall out. After that, we left the room and we followed our chain of command where we informed the nurse on what our findings were and what was going on. And also, we looked up and the HCP was in that day, so we informed her what was going on. And at that point, she was able to make a decision for her patient on what was best. So for the rest of the day, we continued to monitor the client until she was transferred to another room. That is the end of our situation. So looking back through the situation, I hope you found examples of what needed to be done to make a good clinical decision. Safety, when we left, we made sure the patient was in lowest position and the guardrails were up. And another important thing was we informed maintenance immediately that the bed needed to be fixed. That is something that definitely should not be happening and could be prevented. We showed teamwork and collaboration by having more than one person helping out. We delegated things. And we had all the information that you need. You always need to rely on your team. It's a good thing to have. Professionalism, we followed the chain of command. We gave every important detail that HCP needed to know what was going on with that client. Also, patient-centered care was demonstrated greatly that day. We focused just on what the client needed and the client only, and we gave the best care that we could give in doing so. And for clinical decision making, if you follow these components, you'll make a great one. Also, use the tools you have. Use your assessment. Use other people. Use the information you have that you've collected over this patient to determine what clinical decision making needs to happen. Thanks.